websites and applications is going to be a lot simpler to do from one master CMS than it is having to ones each time. Does that sound familiar? Has anybody ever asked you about AI or ChatGPT and you're not really sure on what it is, what it can do, or where to even begin? Well, don't worry, because we're going to go through that together. So right off the bat, let's have a look at where ChatGPT came from, because I actually think that's quite important. Now, it was actually developed by a company called OpenAI, who were founded back in 2015 by an absolute dream team of leading AI experts, including Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, Ilias Skiver, John Schulman, and Wojciech Zaremba. I'm sorry if I've butchered any of those names. Now, if that team wasn't impressive enough, there was also the likes of Reid Hoffman and Peter Thiel, who acted as high-profile investors into the company and helped get them to their starting fund of $1 billion, which is absolutely insane. I don't even think the Avengers initiative cost that much. Anyway, fast forward a decade and not everybody on that list is still with the company, but it's important to know that they've all played a crucial role into the company's long-term mission statement, which is ensuring that general artificial intelligence benefits all of humanity. Alright, so now that we've covered OpenAI and where ChatGPT comes from, maybe you're left wondering what it is and what ChatGPT actually stands for. Well, for a quick win, I can tell you that GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. As for what it is, there's a lot to cover, but if you're looking for a too long didn't read, ChatGPT is what's known as a conversational AI model, sometimes also known as a large language model. And it's designed to handle all sorts of text-based tasks, such as answering questions, helping with creative ideas, drafting emails, analyzing code, and so on. Most recently, it's even gained some new features such as voice conversations and a web search tool as well. Right, so before we delve any deeper, it's important to get one thing out of the way. AI is a very broad term and spans across multiple facets of technology with different types of different tasks. When talking about ChatGPT, however, we're focusing on a specific category of AI known as generative AI. Now, generative AI are models which are designed to help generate new content such as text, images, audio, or video. All of these can produce content which is considered to be an original output, and they'll do so based on the data that they're trained on, but it's important to know that they'll actually never generate exact copies or duplicates. With ChatGPT, the only form of content it can produce is text-based, but with that said, there are integrations within it, such as DALL-E 3, meaning that it is actually able to produce images for you as part of your prompt as well, but it isn't necessarily what ChatGPT specializes in. It specializes in text-based responses. So when I first started learning about AI, I heard the term LLM or large language model quite a lot, and it was thrown around, and I got a little confused because I thought they were one and the same thing. And they kind of are to a degree, sort of. It's like this. Have you ever heard the phrase, all thumbs are fingers, but not all fingers are thumbs? Because it's very similar to that. As I mentioned earlier, artificial intelligence is a very broad term in the field of computer science, which aims to create machines or systems that are capable of performing tasks that would typically require some sort of human intelligence. Now, these could include anything to do with learning, reasoning, problem solving, understanding language, recognizing patterns, or even making decisions. Whereas LLMs or large language models are more a specific type of AI designed to help understand, generate, and manipulate the natural language. They use a type of neural network architecture that's known as a transformer, and they're trained on massive sets of written language to help recognize patterns, grammar, context, and even meaning. Now, whilst they don't necessarily understand language like a human can, they can predict and generate text as if they would do, which is very, very impressive, but all the more misleading as well. I didn't write a too long didn't read on how ChatGPT works because it can get quite technical, but bear with me and I promise it will make sense. ChatGPT works by leveraging the fundamentals of the large language model, but more specifically, it uses what's known as the transformer architecture. So in order for it to be able to produce content, we know that it's been trained on vast amounts of text data sourced from books, websites, and articles, etc. Now, this data is actually responsible for what's helped it learn to recognize things in language such as grammar, context, tense, and things like that. It's also responsible for understanding the relationships between words, which in turn is what it actually uses to understand how words and sentences might sort of come together in the future. Right, so that covers the first half of how it works, and you can almost sort of consider that as the setup. But now let's have a little look at what actually happens when you interact with ChatGPT and how that operates. So when you prompt or ask it a question, ChatGPT then actually stops and processes that text and then actually predicts the most likely set of next words or sentences based on what it's just learned. But this is actually done through the use of contextual understanding, which means that it doesn't actually read and try to understand each of those words in isolation, but instead it takes a step back and tries to look at the entire conversation. And by doing this, it allows you to maintain coherent conversations over multiple interactions. Now, before it does any processing, your prompt actually needs to be split up into smaller chunks known as tokens, and these could actually either be a series of words words, individual words, or even individual parts of words themselves. Now, whilst ChatGPT is breaking your prompt up into those tokens, what it's actually doing is it's taking a little look and seeing if it can predict the next token in the sequence. And it does that by having a read of the previous token and seeing if that matches what it's about to predict and if it's coherent or not. If so, it will then continue doing that until it's formulated its response to your prompt and it'll send it back to you. Okay, so now you're sat there wondering, that was all very interesting, but what can it actually do? And in short, it can do everything. Well, it can nearly do everything. It can certainly do a lot. The best way to answer that question is to jump in and start playing with it yourself to see how it can help you. It offers free translations across all of the major languages. You could sit there and try and optimize a task to help with productivity, or you could even use it for entertainment purposes, such as discussing really niche trivia or even playing games with it. Personally, I use it at work a lot to help improve efficiencies, and I have it act as a bit of a personal assistance to all of my projects. Or sometimes when there's a piece of technology that's a little bit complex for me to understand, I have it break it down to me and explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, which I find myself doing a little bit too often, unfortunately. But I honestly think the biggest thing that I use it for is to simply ask questions, because that's what I do. I'm the kind of guy that once I've asked one question, my curiosity will definitely kick in and I'll have another 12 questions immediately. The people I work with know this all too well and suffer from it nearly daily. But the brilliance with ChatGPT is that it allows you to have that. It allows you to interact with it in a way that as soon as it's giving you the answer to something, you can ask it more questions, you can probe it, and you can ask more and more about it, and it never stops. It will just keep coming back to you, and it knows the historical conversation that you've had, so it will refer back to things that you've already discussed, and it knows what it is that you're trying to learn, and I just think that's fantastic. There's no right or wrong answer. If you think it can help you with something, give it a go. 9 times out of 10 it's probably going to be able to do it. Okay, so for over 20 years we all know that Google has absolutely dominated the search engine market. I mean, it's even got to the point where its own brand name has become a verb. I mean, how many times have you heard somebody say, you need to Google that, or let me Google that for you? Yes, I know there are things out there such as Yahoo and Bing, but when was the last time you heard anybody use either of those? Google is definitely got the monopoly when it comes down to the search engine market, or at least it did until everything that's now happening with ChatGPT. So with ChatGPT, it's like using Google, but it does all of the heavy lifting for you. It actually does the Googling for you. By asking it a question, it will immediately begin scanning hundreds of relevant websites. It will collate all of the data it can find, interpret it, look for patterns or repeatable answers before generating a response from multiple sources that have been rolled into one. Now, with all of that said, I can already hear a load of you tripping over your keyboards, rushing to the comments to try and tell me that Google's got its own version of this and it's called Gemini. And yes, that's true, but in my opinion, I think ChatGPT is better. Now, one of the best features that I think OpenAI offers through the paid version is actually the ability for you to create your own GPTs. Now, don't worry, you don't have to be a software developer to do this. You don't have to know anything about code either. You start by answering a few simple questions and then you refine your GPT through something what's known as prompt engineering, which again sounds scary, but it isn't. You're literally just refining what you've got by telling GPT that you want to make some changes, and you keep doing that until you're satisfied. You might be wondering why you'd want to create a GPT when ChatGPT is right there, and that's a perfectly valid question, but it all comes back down to what I was saying earlier about the specific data sets that it's trained on. Now, with your own GPT, what you're able to do is you're able to pre-train it and upload specific data sets from yourself and ask it questions about that. What you're looking to do is create a personalized assistant which can give you answers specifically from one or multiple data sets that only you've supplied. Okay, so by now I can tell that you're on the edge of your seat and you want to know where you can get started with ChatGPT, and to be honest, it couldn't be any simpler. All you have to do is head over to chatgpt.com, create an account and get cracking. I've put the links in the description below if you want to take a little look, but alternatively, if you don't want to use a browser, you can actually download ChatGPT from the App Store and the Google Store if you'd rather have it on your tablet or phone as well. Once you've made your account, you'll be able to start. ChatGPT will ask you a question, something along the lines of how can I help you today, and there'll be a window prompt where you're able to type in what it is that you want to ask it, and you're away. You can either keep with the same thread and keep the conversation going, or if you want to start a new thread or a new conversation, if you will, you just have to click the icon in the top left and it'll allow you to create a new one. If you keep the conversation going in one thread, it will remember the conversation you've had up until that point. However, if you create a new thread and try to refer to a conversation from a previous thread, it won't be able to do that. So you have to be careful if you decide that you want to start a new subject matter, or if you want to continue on the subject matter that you're discussing. Personally, I've got threads that have been going for months and months and months. As far as I'm aware, I don't think there's a cap on how long it'll hold your data for. So it's not like you could have a conversation with it for 2 years and after that 2-year mark, it starts to delete some of the conversation. It doesn't lose that. As far as I'm aware, it'll keep keep it until you remove it. Now, if you're wondering if you can access the same information on your phone as you can your PC, you most definitely can. Providing you log in with the same account, all of your conversations can get carried across between your desktop, your laptop, your tablet, or even your phone, so you're able to keep those conversations up and on the go whilst you're out and about. Hopefully this video has given you a bit more of an insight into generative AI and piqued your curiosity to go and try it for yourself. With that said, I do think it's imperative that you get involved with AI sooner rather than later, especially within business. If you haven't explored it yet, now is genuinely the best time to get involved. It's growing at such an alarming rate that if you don't stop to pay attention, I feel like you're going to be left in the dust, and it's only going to get harder and harder for you to catch up. Thank you ever so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, then please do give it a like and a subscribe. For those of you that are new here, my name's Adam and I've been a technical project manager for over a decade now. So if there's any more agency or tech related insights that you'd like to hear about, let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.